under here. I am going to clean all this up since I have all this room. Clean all this up, wipe it all down, probably hit it with some undercoating, try to seal everything up, clean the surface rust. We're gonna get up inside here, around the K-member, get it cleaned. The back of the heads, once I get the flywheel off, we'll replace the rear main seal, clean up the back of the motor. I'll probably go get some blue engine paint while I'm here, paint the back of the motor, get everything cleaned up. But as you can see, underside of this car is really nice, really clean. If this was a 2008 Chevy Silverado, I'd be able to reach my hand down from the inside to clean the underneath. Rocker panels would be all gone, stuff like that. But yeah, pretty solid for a Michigan car. Okay, now that the shifter is removed, you can see my hole right there. The brown spot is the hole that marks the center of the transmission. That's where the shifter will come up through the center console, which is a lot farther to the right or passenger side than I would liked it to have been. Would have been nice if, you know, transmission fell somewhere here in the center, but it's just the way this tunnel is designed. We're gonna cut out the spot on the floor and we will mount the shifter and the transmission and see if we have enough room for the shifter handle. Here, let me show you. All right, so as you can see, this is the top of the transmission, so none of this is going to protrude up through the floor. The only section that possibly could come through the floor is just this boot part here. I was thinking it was going to be this whole section here all the way around, but it's not. It is just this section. So honestly, be like a 2.5-inch hole saw. All right, so this is what I'm gonna try. I am going to hole saw just this section here. See the gold colored part? This 3 5/8 inch hole saw will clear all of that. Give me a little bit of wiggle room. You know, if we have to, we'll cut it open like the rest of them that I've seen. I know a lot of the Mustangs have a hole pretty much the size of this gold plate here on the top. And I'll try to do the minimal amount of cutting as possible. where everything will still line up and give us plenty of room to set this transmission in place. I might be creating more work for myself by doing it this way and have to cut out the rest of the hole, but you got to keep in mind we also have this boot that is going to go inside the car, mounted to the trans tunnel to cover any type of hole or anything that we make. It's a little tore up, maybe a little silicone on it, but that's the plan. There is the hole. As you can see, right there is where we were looking on the inside. You can see it's just going to clear, or at least I hope to clear, the air duct for the rear of the car. Now, I don't have my clutch yet, still waiting on it to come in, and the rear main seal. So I just have the bell housing mocked into place. I'm gonna now raise the transmission up into place, and we're gonna put it through the hole as a dry mock just to see how it fits on the interior of the car. Now, I understand not everybody will be able to do this like this. If you have a hoist, it makes it easy to be doing it this way in a transmission jack. But I'm doing this so I can get a proper measurement, a precise measurement for the guys who are wanting to do this to their car, and we'll be able to just measure possibly off this dimple right here. Is that dimple? We could measure from that dimple, centered, straight back, and maybe give some good dimensions for other guys wanting to do this as well. I had to notch the hole back just a little bit. Well, there it is. As you can see, that gold does come all the way up through the back of the floor. So I did my hole saw on the front, and then I straight lined straight back and cut out a square. But the good thing is the rear floor heat is going to stay intact. There's fifth gear, reverse, not even close, not even close. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Plenty of room. Do know that this little Hurst shifter I have here is not going to cut it. That will be way too low. I need something a little taller in this car. This would have worked great in a Mustang or something, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna need a taller shifter. We'll have to block these off, these lines. I'll probably just put something in these holes for now and chase these down and see where they go and completely get rid of them. They are for when you put your car in drive, it would automatically release the parking brake, so you're not driving with your parking brake on. So we'll get rid of that. Also, the shifter cable, we'll trace it out. I just clipped it off of the shifter, the automatic shifter. Yep, so that's the plan anyway. This is just a dry fit. Looks like everything's gonna work great. Only thing is, I know I'm going to have to notch this out. Let's see. So So this goes something like that. So for this to be sitting like that, it almost clears when you're in first. So ideally, I would like to keep this as square as possible. That's all the way forward. So we're gonna continue on right across here, over, straight down. See how, well, let's see. Let's go in reverse here. There's reverse. Yeah, see, we're not too far off. So, I believe, got hung up in here. So I believe I'm going to be able to just trim. We'll stay just off of this edge here, trim straight over, probably make a nice rounded corner, just like that, and come up, straight up here. It'll just be a big square, and we'll put a rubber boot or a leather shifter boot in here, something that'll match the car, keep a nice clean look, try to keep it as factory looking as possible. That's my goal with the inside of this car, is not to change a whole lot. That's it for the inside for now. Gonna be waiting on the clutch to dry fit the clutch in there, and hook up the pedals and go from there. All right, you can see right there that the transmission just fits in that hole. I'm probably gonna trim out where the white paint marker is all the way around. It's just barely touching on this side. We're gonna trim that completely out, just so we don't have it rubbing on the tunnel or anything. There's gonna be a little bit of flex in this cross member transmission mount. There's gonna be a little bit of movement, so we are going to clearance that just a little bit, and then I'll take final measurements, tell you what those are. I did put the drive shaft in. I used a T5 yoke. You can see it's black. When I remove this drive shaft, we're gonna wire wheel the whole thing, clean it out, paint it. But this is the factory drive shaft for this car with a T5 yoke in it. And there is, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch of play there that it can move in and out. This is actually in a little farther than what the AOD yoke was inside of the AOD transmission from the factory. So I don't see where the drive shaft needs lengthened at all, like everyone is always saying. You need like 1.25 inches longer drive shaft. This is the factory one. I mean, right there's the numbers. So I don't know. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna run the factory OEM drive shaft. It is perfect, and we'll go from there. I did get my upgrade parts for the T5. Here is the steel bearing retainer, throw-out bearing rides on the steel instead of the aluminum one that comes in these in the factory. There's a little bit of grooving from where the throw-out bearing rubbed on the original one up there. So I got one of those to put on. Also, the neutral safety switch for the T5 was busted, so I picked up another one of those from LMR. It's for a T5. And Ford Performance Parts rear main seal, we'll replace that. Also, There is my pilot bearing that's going to go in the crankshaft. Also Ford Performance parts. So we'll get these put on and remove the transmission, get these put on, and the transmission will go in for the final time. Alright, so on the neutral safety switch, I cut off this factory connector. I have this kit, weather pack type connectors. So I clipped that off, installed a 2-pin connector. Here's the one that I'm going to have to mount in the car because the AOD has 4 wires for the neutral safety switch and the reverse lights and 1 connector. So I have to separate the 2 of those, and I'll do that with this. If that makes any sense. The T5 has 2 separate plugs on it. Here is the neutral safety. This is the one that's broken, so that's one that I just had in my hands is going to screw into here. And then the other one for the reverse lights is right here, which is another 2 wire. So the AOD has 4 wires and 1 plug, and this one has 2 separate. So 2 wires, 2 wires. So I have to split the wires, make the 2 plugs, and factory stuff isn't an option unless I go to a junkyard and get the other end that's going to go in the car. Just right here. So see, you can see those. There's only 3 in there. 4 wires. So I got to figure out these 4, which 2 are the neutral safety and which 2 are the reverse lights. I do have a pin-out diagram. I'll look, but that's my plan anyway. Separate this. I'll cut this off. It'll become 2 connectors, 2 wires in each connector, 1 for reverse lights and 1 for neutral safety. That way everything will work correctly. Alright, let's try to get this rear main seal out. It's been a long time since I've had to remove one of these. So I got an old screwdriver. Just kind of slowly work it around. Pry out. Here it comes. Came out a lot simpler than I thought it was going to. Got the surface all wiped down, perfectly clean in there. Got our Ford Performance parts, rear main. Take that out. We get some motor oil. Just give it a light coat. Rub that around on there real good. Dogs are out there getting into something. Nice and easy. Push it around, work it around, not to tear that inner lip. I don't know if you could hear that. That was it going, the lip going around. Got a piece of brass. I'm just going to slowly tap, working our way around. Checking to see if it's flush. There we go. New rear mains installed. What are you barking out there for? What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing, Kenny? Yes. Yes, there's nothing out there. Don't worry. Quit barking. Alright, pilot bearing will be the next thing. A little piece of emery cloth. Go around, clean up the inside of this, being the automatic has never had anything in this portion of the crankshaft. Back in there real good. Get that all cleaned out. Just a little bit of surface rust is all that's in there. Once again, just a little bit of 30 weight oil in there. Got our Ford Performance Parts roller pilot bearing. Set it in there. Nice and even. And we got our 15/16 socket that we use for the crankshaft. Just lightly tap it in. Kind of working around. A little bit in a circular motion. Try to get it as evenly as possible. Nice and slow. You should be able to hear the sound change when I get all the way in. There it is. It's all the way in. Nice and flush. That's it for the pilot bearing. Next, we'll stick the flywheel on. I'm going to clean out each one of these bolt holes here. Clean them out with a brake cleaner so they're nice and clean. And I'll put some Loctite on the bolts. Alright, this is all the bolt holes cleaned, brake cleaner. Tell you what, these blue rags from like Costco's or Sam's Club work great out in the shop. Come in a roll, or you can buy them in the box, or you just pull them out of the box. It's like rag in a box or something. They work great just for this type of stuff. Lint free, they don't leave anything on there. Works really well. Alright, now we're ready for the flywheel. So let's see, how does this go? There's only one way. Look at that. Red Loctite. started. And I don't have it positioned correctly. These two holes here are just slightly off. Let's try that. There we go. That's the right way. I gotta find my other flywheel bolt. Got it. Clean it off some brake cleaner. I'll wipe it all down. All the old engine oil off there from the leaky rear main. Okay. Last one. Some Loctite. Way more than I needed on that one. Alright, let's get all these figure tight. Got the torque wrench set to 75 foot-pounds. So you want to put it somewhere between 75 and 80 foot-pounds is what the spec is. We're going to go slightly in a crisscross pattern. Probably going to have to put the 15/16 back on front of the motor. Yep, let me go get the 15/16. Well, let's do this again. Where were you guys? How many of you were screaming into the camera telling me the backing plate? Don't forget the backing plate. You guys weren't screaming loud enough because I just had to pull the flywheel back off, put the backing plate on. Yeah, would have been nice to do that the first time. But here we go. No big deal. We'll do it again. Retorque these, 75 foot-pounds. Make sure I got them all. All right, backing plate's on now. Flywheel's installed. Cleaned. I cleaned the clutch, put it on. right, now we got the 6 8mm bolts in that hold the pressure plate on. And I'm snugged up a little bit here, just finger tight. Be 35 foot-pounds. That's a 13mm. We'll get that set. Cross pattern, all 6 of these. You want to make sure that your alignment tool here moves nice and freely. All right, so that's it for the pressure plate install. The alignment tool, see, it moves nice and freely, so perfect alignment there. Next we'll be installing the bell housing right there. Problem is the AOD had a much thicker top. Let me show you the top 2 bell housing bolts. So we're gonna have to grab, let's see, 7/16 by 14 1.5 long bolts for the top 2. Other than that, you can use the factory ones for all the rest. Just these top 2 need to be shorter. Here's the difference right here. There's the difference. Oh, hey Penny, what do you want? So you can see the difference is about a 1/2 inch longer. So factory bell housing bolts are 2 inches long, and we need to change them to 1.5 inches for the top ones, just because they stick through way too far. The block has shallower holes than that, so that's what we end up with. 1/2 inch into the block ish, 3/4 possibly, but yep, that's what we're gonna do. All right, now let's get the throw bearing installed. But first, let's take some grease, put it on the pivot ball right here. Pretty good amount. Make sure you got plenty on there. Also a little bit on these little fingers. And a little bit on the tops right here. But I'm also going to put a little bit of grease inside of here. And then let's just goes right in here. And little fingers snap right onto the pivot ball. And then as you pull and push, your clutch fingers are right here, and this is what disengages your clutch. All right, here we go. Now let's install the bell housing. Actually, clutch alignment tool, no longer need that. Bell housing bolt, pins, alignment pins, get them on there. It's all lined up. We'll start with a couple of these lower bolts here. In here, hold it up there. This is going to be so much easier compared to the AOD. You get right to these top bell housing bolts, no problem. All right, so we got that started. We're going to time lapse. We'll zip all these on, and I'll come back to you. All right, you can see we got our new hardened bearing retainer, pilot bearing, I don't know what you call it, bearing retainer, but this is steel versus this aluminum one right here. And you can see the wear marks right here. That's where it was wearing around from it spinning. So now we got a steel one. I want to point out that you need to make sure that this little bubble right here and this little square is on the bottom. This allows your transmission fluid to splash in and lube this bearing behind this retainer and fall back into the case. So it splashes. So they got to be straight up and down with each other. That's what keeps your front bearing from seizing or anything like that. Decided to open this hole up just a little bit. You have a little more room. It's covered with the rubber boot. 6.5 inches long by 4.5 inches wide. And see this little divot right here? That's going to be what I'm going to give you in order to mark it. That is in the center, and that is 2 inches to the start of the hole. So from that little indent here, 2 inches, start the hole, that is your center line. That's what we're going to go with. See the extra carpet in there that we'll have to trim up for the rubber boot to come down. Okay, transmission is in and completely bolted up, clutch installed. I'm not sure if this cross member is flipped. I believe it is, I can't remember. But this is how it has to be installed for it to line up correctly with the T5 transmission. See how it points backwards or bows towards the rear of the car? I think on the AOD, the bow was towards the front. But doing it this way allows you to install with the factory cross member, not having to use a Mustang one. Alright, last thing here is to drill the hole in the firewall for this clutch cable. And to do that, we're going to remove this relay and make some room to be able to get in there. Surprisingly, it's a 3/8 to remove that. Alright, with them out of the way, looks like there's some sound deadening, undercoating stuff right there, but you can see, I don't want to focus, right there, see that round curve? That's the factory dimple, like what you would see on a Mustang automatic car that wasn't drilled for a 5-speed. So I'm going to scrape that off since it's not wanting to focus with my screwdriver in there. I'll scrape that off and bring you back. All right, with that scraped off, you can clearly see perfect circle. It's actually like a body plug, but we'll have to hole saw that out so we can slip it through. I kind of pushed on it. It wouldn't budge on the inside, so it must be sheet metal completely over. Well, there you have it. The T5 is now in the car. It moves. One thing that I didn't video or show was neutral safety switch. I showed you the top of the transmission, the new sensor going in, the weather pack connector that I put on. In order to connect that to the AOD wiring harness, you have to cut the 2 wires, and I think it was white with a red tracer and then red with a blue tracer. That needs to plug into that detent ball or that weather pack connector that goes to the top of the T5 transmission. And then that allows you to start the car, lets them know that it's in neutral by moving the shifter in the center, and the car will start. This was tough. Maybe I'm just getting old or what, I don't know, but this was definitely a tough project. Pretty challenging. I wouldn't recommend doing it in your driveway on your back. You can. I used to swap these transmissions when in my 20s, laying on the ground in a parking lot. So it is doable, but it was tough. It kicked my butt a little bit here doing this. But it's in, it moves. I'll have to put the interior back together. I ordered a shift boot, the simulated leather Mustang one. So maybe I'll show a video later on of what it all looks like inside. But this is going to conclude the T5 swap in the Lincoln. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching, following the series. Maybe it'll help somebody. There's a lot of good write-ups. I'd recommend doing a write-up, printing it off, looking at the write-up as you're doing it, and maybe following this video might help somebody. But thanks for watching, guys.